Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Madness Entertainment Group presents the Madness Comic Network with original programming and additional comic-related content.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday nights as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
What's good, nerds? It's a show on Tuesday. I am your host, Tim TK, and I am joined by my co-host from the Shadow Realm, Mr. Quentin Von Doom.
Yes. From the Shadow Realm.
Yes. And the fluorescent Aaron Humphreys.
Yes. I like to draw. I come here. I've heard you guys like comic books and stuff.
We do occasionally participate in the comic.
In the comic.
We have a new intro there at the end. We got some new graphics, some new headshots.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey Lubba, how you doing, man? I know we had me being the stereotypical border bro. Quentin was dressed up as Bob Ross and the Viking, and then Aaron actually looked like he's giving a TED talk. So that's different. Yeah. Anyway, we got new graphics. We got a new structure to the show, a little bit. Still leaving room for the asides and random whatevers that make us the content you come to week in, week out. And we got new captions and like new aesthetic on the YouTube. It's great.
We're just all new and improved.
Exactly. We got the new beach bod going on. It's gonna be a hot nerd summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
All right. Well, as we stated earlier, we are a show on Tuesday, and sometimes we talk about comics.
What are we talking about tonight?
Tonight we're talking about comics as a hybrid medium. This is gonna be so we're talking about in that we're medium, in which case you have to show and tell. You have to write the exposition and show the exposition sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're different from movies and novels. We're like both at the same
Yep.
time. Yeah. So we're going to be getting into that in a second here, but we like to start every show just getting to know what we're into and how we spent the week. So Quinn, how was your week? What have you been ingesting media wise?
Well, I finally watched Picard.
Oh
I really liked it. I
Same.
really liked it. I've stayed away from it for a long time because I was afraid it would be ruined, and I just couldn't have one of my all-time, favorite shows ruined. And finally, I just jumped in, watched the first episode, and then ended up binge watching the rest of it. So I don't know how the second season is going to go down, but the first season was awesome.
It was so good. It was as just random philosophical as I imagined a show about Picard would be. Yeah, and it's fantastic.
Well, it was dealing with two of my favorite characters, which is Picard and Data. And my favorite episodes of TNG is the ones that go in on Data. And any time where there's any other synthetics involved, I just always loved it. All the lore ones, anytime I love those.
Yeah, the last episode of Picard, I legitimately teared up. There's a specific scene that there were tears.
Yep.
Damn, nerd. That's good.
Yes.
It's just a shame old Britt Spiner has gotten as old as he has. He just can't play that character continually.
Yeah. He did have a really good show that he made himself and put on YouTube called Fresh Hell, which was about being an aged 80s actor. It's really funny.
I'll have to watch that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I watched, since I last spoke to y'all, I watched another thing that totally surprised me and was absolutely awe-striking and amazing, and that was the Snyder Cut.
Okay.
I had not seen it. I'd only saw the movie, and the movie was so bad to me, the regular Justice League movie, that I just, it took me a long time to take the chance, So finally, I watched the Snyder Cut, and wow, blew me away. I mean, it was awesome. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I hope that there can be some Snyderverse stuff in the future. I don't know what the talk is, but
as far as I've heard, it's all but dead. I think Zack Snyder's moved on to other things. I hope that's not the case.
Well, the way it all was done, I feel like he probably should, and I would really, applaud him. And if that's all he does, that's fine, But that was great. It was really great. It's just a shame that new people come in and they just tear stuff up. Warner Brothers is the worst when it comes to DC properties. There's supposedly all kinds of stuff that should have went through there that never did because they changed ownership or, management in some way or the other. And other than that, I've been sick and my whole house is still sick. And so, yeah, been great.
That sucks.
No.
Yeah. Daughter's got pneumonia right now. So if I have to get off here speedily,
That's where I was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
All right.
What have I been doing this week? I'm kind of an Olympics nerd, so I've been watching the Olympics a lot.
Okay.
All the events and stuff like that. I've been reading a comic called Sithra, which is kind of a combination of a kid's book and a comic book. It's Jason Brubaker did it.
Ooh. Okay.
Really good, the 6 volumes, but he does really unique things I've never seen. Like he'll switch from comic book, and then the next thing it'll be like a kid's book where he's writing third person, then first person. I've never seen it, so it's impressive. It's given me a lot of ideas of what I would like to do with my stuff. As far as video games. Started the second Neo, which took me forever. I finished the first one. It took me like 200 hours to finish it, and I loved it. And I'm like, I really want to start a new one because I get really addicted to the games. So I'm like, I don't know but I started it. I'm like, okay, I'll start it, but I'll play it in little bits because it'll just engulf me. I love those type of games. Finishing up my comic, I'm actually working on the very last page of my comic right now. Then I have to do a cover and inside cover, and that'll be done. I don't know. As far as what am I reading? Watching. I started watching that Archive 81, I think, or 88, 81 on Netflix.
Oh yeah, I've heard good things.
Yeah, it's pretty good so far. Little, like I can see kind of a lot of the stuff coming. But I like it so far. I don't know. I always just sometimes I like horror stuff, but horror TV series sometimes don't work as well as a horror movie. In fact, I sometimes do think the best format for horror is short films.
Mhm.
Like I watch a lot of horror short films on like YouTube and stuff, and those always seem more effective because it's like some sort of like event or whatever when they start
Yeah.
adding story. Like they did that movie Lights Out.
Oh yeah.
But if you ever watch the original short film it was based on, it's like 10 times more scary and more disturbing. And it was like 10 minutes long. It was great. And they made a movie like, well, now you need that story and backstory. I'm like, yeah, you just ruined it. Stop doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah. Other than that, I did get my. I'm not gonna buy all the He-Man figures, but I did buy Man at Arms, which is my favorite guy, so I bought him. And then I like Trapjaw, so I kept seeing him in the store. I'm like, fine, I'll just buy Man at Arms. I can't buy the rest. I just don't have the room for him. But I did buy him. Yeah, I think
You talking about the Masterverse one?
Yeah, the
Revelation
series. Yeah, Revelation. I thought they did a good job with him.
I have not watched it yet, but I did end up getting the He-Man and the Battle Cat because the Battle Cat at Target it was on sale for $11.99. I just couldn't.
It was well done. The figures and stuff are well done.
Yeah,
I like it. I had watched the first episode of it, and it was good. I might, excuse me, sit down and watch the rest. We'll see. I know all the controversy going into it, but yeah, I might check it out. I tried to check out that 2011 series, and that was okay. It's a little jokey. I kind of like He-Man a little more serious. I know I think Netflix is making a movie. I don't know why He-Man is coming back in such force. I think more people would rather have Thundercats than He-Man come back, maybe. I know there's a lot of Thundercats fans out there.
I know the Thundercats did have the revival. I only know that because Matthew Mercer voiced one of the cats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they try to actually reboot Thundercats ever so often, and it somehow or the other they mess it up. I'm not sure exactly what happens.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that. They did a 2012 or 13 series that was actually really well done, but nobody watched it, so they canceled it.
Yeah.
So figures. Yeah. Other than that, I think that's all I got really going on. It got games coming out. I got PlayStation 5 a while ago, so
yeah.
So I have to catch up on all that crap.
You managed to beat the scalpers.
I did, and I just basically kept clicking on this guy at 3 a.m. It's like you know they're having a stock coming in Target. And I just kept refreshing the page. I didn't think I'd get one. Then I went through. I'm like, great, crap. All right, that was easy. So yeah, I have a friend who's still looking for one, so we'll try to help her get one. She's like, I give up. I'm like, don't give up. They're still out there. You can do it.
Perfect. All of my week has been consumed by this.
That one card.
This one card. The deck that I built around it, but it's been all Yu-Gi-Oh since Master Duel came out. I've had like outside of like the family drama that happened earlier this month, I've had like the busiest 2 weeks of my life recently. So I have only had time for like an hour of Yu-Gi-Oh a night, maybe. I've not been able to touch anything else really. So with Master Duel out, and all my friends going on 30 and above who played Yu-Gi-Oh in the schoolyard are like, hey, I can do this without committing a bunch of time going to the card shop anymore.
Yeah.
And so now we've started having Yu-Gi-Oh nights or just crawling the ranked ladder, and it's been real weird playing Yu-Gi-Oh again after like 17 years away.
Man, and there's nothing better than having your pals,
Yeah.
There's nothing better than that.
I got my friend to play the intro mission to Gloomhaven,
Oh yeah,
and we're gonna try. He's like, "Is it a 2-player game?" I'm like, "It can be. Um, it can be hard."
yeah.
So I've been trying to talk. I had a few friends who are playing it. We played it a decent way into it, and then they were like, "This is boring," and left. I'm like, whatever. So I talked my friend into it. He's like, "This is kind of cool. Bring it back." I'm like, "Okay," but I had to transport it to his house. I transport it in
Oh,
pieces.
yeah.
I just got to gather it because the box is so
Whew.
enormous.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's every time I have to move like access and allies anywhere, it's a struggle.
I'm just like, yeah, just come here. It's so much,
Yes.
yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
So,
On that, looking forward to the Destiny expansion in 2 weeks. So I'll probably go on, and that'll be my update for
that's the
week.
Witcher thing, right?
Yes,
The Queen. The Queen, is it Queen something?
Witch Queen. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh with Wubba now. That's where you got going on. Wubba, if you haven't checked out Master Duel, it's on phones. It's on mobile now. It's on every console and mobile as well as PC. So it's a great way to spend 20 minutes at the end of the day.
Any of you guys getting in the Elden Ring at all?
Elden Rings, I think it still have a little bit before that one that comes out. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it. Right now, I just finished installing Lost Ark, and I'm one of the. I have a founders pack on that, so I get 3 days early access. So after tonight's show, I'll probably play a little bit of Lost Ark before I crash.
Do you guys? I started playing another game too. I've been trying to get used to playing 2 games at a time, like going back and forth, because
Mhm.
I'm one of the guys like I'll finish one game, and then like the whole time I'm trying to finish one game, like every other game I want comes out during it, and then my stack gets bigger. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
like go between. I started playing what? Do you guys know an old anime called Record of Lotus War? Is that
Yes.
okay?
Yeah, it
They
was
released
anime Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones.
yeah, and they released like the Labyrinth of Wonder with Deedlit or whatever,
Ooh,
which is basically a straight Castlevania ripoff, which
okay.
like Symphony of the Night ripoff, which I'm like totally fine. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't care. So far it's been pretty fun. Interesting. I'm kind of still like playing through it and going through it, but I'm having a lot of fun with that one. Like I said, I just started Neo. I think
Yeah.
I beat like the first mini boss, and I'm just like, the first Neo was like I like Dark Souls games, but they get a little technical for me.
Mhm.
So
Uh,
even the
yes.
first one, it's like they kept adding stuff onto this
Yes.
one. I'm like, the first one's confusing enough. Like, yeah, now there's all this new stuff. I'm like, can I just kill things? Can I?
That is how every Yu-Gi-Oh player coming back to Yu-Gi-Oh's feeling now, where it's like, what do you mean there's 8 more ways of summoning?
Yeah, I know. I was like, wait, can you just? How did I summon the first time? Can you just?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I'll
Uh,
get the hang of it.
yes. Speaking of Dark Souls, you reminded me of this. Have you seen Bloodborne PSX?
Wait,
No.
is that the D-Make one? What looks like a PlayStation one?
Yeah, so it's a fan make of Bloodborne in its entirety, using PlayStation 1 style like 32-bit graphics and everything like that.
I've seen images of it. I haven't
yeah,
seen a video of it yet.
It's been uploaded to itch.io, for free, and FromSoft is super into it. They're like, this is like the kind of creativity we want. It's like having people be able to try it like this makes them want to play the actual game, which is true, but also like it looks so good.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to. I have not had a chance to try it, obviously, with the aforementioned busiest 2 weeks of my life, but I'm hoping to try it out soon.
Yeah, like my friend started playing Bloodborne, and he couldn't get into Dark. He tried some other Dark Souls type games, and then he couldn't get into it. And he's like, "Well, show me how you play it." And I showed him how to play it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you can go back and level up." He's like, "You can level up in this game?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's kind of the core thing, ability." And once he figured that out, now he can't put it down. So
Yeah.
it was like that one click, and it's like now he's like, "Oh, I love this game," and but he still gets frustrated with it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, when I first played a Dark Souls game, I didn't get it, and then some guy at work was like, "You got to get number 3," and so I'm like, "Okay, I'll go another try," and then something just clicked with me, and now I just can't get enough of them. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that was me. I got so hooked on that game.
Yeah, it's all of a sudden it's like, wait, oh, I get what they want me to do, and then
Right. Yeah, once you get the pattern down, you're like, wait, I can clear this boss without taking damage.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the first time you clear like one of like the big name bosses that's shown in the opening cutscene, you're just, I am a god.
Yes, and then you usually walk out and get smacked by
You
something.
get smacked by just a random skeleton. That's,
Yeah.
it's chilling there. Yep.
Oh yeah. I actually did in the first Demon Souls is my favorite. So I got the remake. I haven't played it yet, but I played the original Demon Souls like two maybe 3 times, And I did actually kill the dragon on the bridge. You can actually do it, and you can kill it. You can go off the bridge and kill it. But some guy said if you stand in this one place in the bridge and keep shooting an arrow at it every time it comes out, you can kill it.
That's
And
how
it
you
took
get
forever.
the dragon sword or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took forever, but he finally died. I'm like, yay! After like 100 arrows, he finally.
Well, it is almost exactly 100.
Yep.
Yeah, or something like that. It's crazy amount.
Yep. It's the amount of things were like. I've also the guys from Yacht Club were talking about this because they have a new game coming out where they will and I know FromSoft does the same methodology where if people when they QA test, if people find what they think are exploits like either cheese or speedrunning tech, they will build around that to make that a viable path.
That's nice because the one thing is that the guy I can't remember the guy's name. He makes the Soulsborne series.
Miyazaki.
Yeah,
Miyazaki. He does like if there's exploitable in Dark Souls, and I never considered that cheating. People like, is that cheating? It's like there's no such thing as cheating in Dark Souls. If you can win, that's a win.
Yep. Yeah, exploits are just tech. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So before we spend too much time just nerding out about whatever we want. We will. There'll probably be an episode on that not too far future. We're going to be talking about comics as a hybrid medium. So what does that mean? Well, we got
Tim. What are you talking about, dude?
Yes. So as we are all familiar with, in a comic book, there is both text and visual images.
Jest.
I lie. So I'm sure everyone's heard either like the creative phrase "show don't tell," which I can get into and how that is also just utter trivial horse trash. But essentially, it's saying that, especially in writing, the entire thing is telling. You cannot show with words.
Yeah.
That's all. Writers up there knows. So when you are, but more so in film, if you're showing some sort of exposition, you can have an establishing shot where you can, pull back, show a building or a setting in its entirety, so the audience knows without being told where they are explicitly. This is where we are. So the start of Full House in the opening credits, it pans over the Golden Gate Bridge. We're in San Francisco. That's a timely reference.
Yeah, just come and think about it, I'm trying to think of how many shows will do the Golden Gate Bridge as like a sort of entry.
Yeah,
a lot of them. There's another show. There's a few sitcoms actually. I think that actually did that besides Full House. I think. There's another show. Anyway, go ahead.
That's why also a lot of things are set in very iconic cities. Is because like I can show this one building and people know exactly where we are. Friends is much the same way. Miami Vice shows well, it's in the name, but also the opening saying they show the Miami docks, whatever.
Like the beach area, don't they? Doesn't it start out flying over the beach area?
They show the beach area, and then they show like the private docks. I forgot what the actual name for it is, but it's one of the biggest in the United States, and so like a lot of people were into boating. That's what they know Miami for. That sort of thing. If you're writing something, if you're, on the other end of the scale, if you're Tolkien and you're, describing, something's, it was the 8th of Hurin's Day and the season of blah, blah, blah. And we were in the Shire, land of hobbits.
You have no reference for that.
Well, you have no reference, but that's the opposite end where you can all right, I have to tell people where we are because, there's no frame reference. So I have to explain okay, this is the day, this is the month, and this is the setting. And so the reader can then infer all the rest that comes out this sounds like a Thursday in spring with a bunch of hairy short people. Perfect. I know where we are.
Very short people.
Yep. So in comics,
it's like, okay, so we're Burning Man. Okay, I got it. I'm on this.
Yes. Yeah. That's actually the scene in Isengard where they're chopping down the trees. It's just clearing the pit for the concert. Yeah. They're making the Wicker Man.
That's what I think.
Yeah. When you're,
I gotta put Nicolas Cage in the Lord of the Rings. That'd change the entire movie.
Frodo, I need you to take the ring.
Yeah. Come on.
Boromir, So when you're working in comics, we have the visuals we can work with and we can establish all things, but also we can explore a lot of really weird settings and fun things that people have, no point of reference for. So that's when you'll get the opening for the Avengers comic, where it'll be like an establishment shot of the helicarrier, and then in the caption will say Avengers helicarrier somewhere over the Pacific. And so you get a mix of both.
I think also the strength of comics in that area too is just the ability to be able to draw. There's no, like, your imagination is the limit. Like, you don't have to do visual effects or how do we do this? Like, just draw it.
Yeah. So. Your effects budget is the wrist strength of your artist.
Yes.
Yeah. When they start developing carpal tunnel, you run out of money.
And dude, artists are a dime a dozen. So once we just peel off at the art table, just pop another one up.
You can just go through artists' hands, one after the other.
Yeah. They know the risks, right?
Yeah, they signed on for it. That's a joke.
I mean, ask Pete how much, I think Pete, every time he hears a fire engine, breaks into a cold sweat now.
Oh, yeah. It's I mean, that was what we joked about last week, is the curses that Quentin must have yelped at the rooftop when he got the script for the establishing shot of the interior of the church or the BBC building.
Yeah. That's the way it is anytime I read a script, though. It's like, okay, how am I going to do this?
Yeah. I will say there is, so just out of curiosity, Quentin, because I most of my comics that I draw is fantasy, and even like the obsoletes, it's sci-fi stuff. Do you like the challenge of drawing something that is more in the real world, or do you like more of like the fantasy comic you're doing now, where you could just kind of make it up and fudge it to make it your own?
Of course, I can, when I have my own creativity, I can actually decide a lot of times just how hard it's going to be or not hard.
Yeah.
But, it just depends. It depends on if I've done something similar to it before. For instance, I did a pinup for Mr. Curtis Fajita for Shadow Ghost.
Sifu?
And he was real particular about, and which, that's great, because it's a kung fu comic by a kung fu master, as we know. So he was real particular about the fighting stance, even down to the way the hands were.
Yeah.
And that was something that I had never, when I do hands, I'm always just doing them however fits the scene or whatever. But these hands had to be particular. And, so there was his character plus, these hands and this stance. So it was, and the character was Asian, which I'm not used to doing a lot of different nationalities all the time. So it was a little challenging at first when I was looking at it, but as soon as I started into it, it was like, oh yeah, I got this. It was about confidence, That's what it always comes down to is, for me, is confidence, and when I win, I love it. But until I win, I'm like, oh boy. Am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to, so yeah, I really enjoyed doing it once I got into it, but sometimes it takes a little bit to get into stuff.
You don't let Curtis hear you say that, because that way you'll be doing it like, he's like, well, I got more for you. No, I've got other stuff to do.
Well, I really like what he's doing with that. I like his characters. I've seen some of his concept art for that thing. His concept art is just awesome. I love it. And the pages that I've seen that he's done it's going to be a great book. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to read it. And it is guaranteed. He's even going to put it on the cover. It's guaranteed to teach you Kung Fu. I'll actually be able to defend myself.
I won't. Maybe if I smack somebody with the comic. Make the comic big enough, Curtis, so that I can smack somebody with it. You can roll it up and really cause some pain. Strange enough, with my goblins, you can. It's 300 pages. So you roll that. If you can roll it up, you might be able to do some damage.
So it depends on the mood. It depends on the content, but mostly, it is a little easier to make up stuff.
Yeah.
I
always have more fun making up stuff. I've I've had to, in the industry I work in, draw all sorts of weird stuff. I'm like, you want me to draw? Wait, what? Like, and so when I just get to like kind of cut loose and do my own thing, I tend to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I do
tries
like the
my
challenge.
system though.
Yeah.
Like it's too much. Like I get too much. There's no parameters, and then it just kind of gets. I don't know.
Well, I look at a lot of your stuff, Quentin, and I'm like, I have no idea what he's doing, but he's really in depth with it. Is that a foot or wait?
Yeah, I know.
It's gone ballistic.
Yeah.
Well,
And-
that's art. It's got to give you. It's got to leave you with a question.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's the Jackson Pollock mentality. Just leave them with more questions than they have answers when they leave your exhibit. Yeah. Actually, I have an idea for a comic done in the style of Pollock, so that might be dangerous.
That would be. I've actually seen some comics done in fine art styles.
Yeah,
fascinating.
I've seen some like ones on like oh wow, I forgot his name.
The guy that's pointillism or whatever.
He's actually really famous. It's kind of amazing, but
you talking about the guy, guy who
he became an abstract artist, but he like most famous known for like having two paintings, just two really paintings in his brown period.
Escher?
No. Okay, one second. That's.
We must research.
Yes, we have the Google. Picasso.
Yeah. Oh, Picasso. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Picasso's later work, where I saw something where like the line work is done like his self portraits.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very interesting. But I know from a writing perspective, I like writing like hard fiction more than I do writing
like fantasy
primary world type stuff. So like writing Wolf Hunter was great because it was kind of a secondary world, and it was a secret world Earth where you can like mess with some of the history, but you still have to match the history of it. Like I have to have a line of exposition explaining what law says this has to work the way it does.
Yeah.
But on another project, which is currently being arted on and has not yet been announced, there is a moment where a dude, there are two people flying in space, and one of them chucks a spear of solar energy and knocks a moon ghost across the Milky Way. I'm like, perfect.
So what
hyper insanity.
What do you smoke, Tim? I mean, is it legal?
Lots of caffeine.
Lots of caffeine.
Yes, yeah. I smoke caffeine. I think that's the first problem. But yeah, I like being able to just kind of go ham on that, and have very loose exposition in the writing, which unfortunately forces the artist to be a little more hard-handed in the design and creating the visual exposition.
Yeah.
But I do have some hard science fiction concepts, and that like there's no faster than light travel in this one, so everything is confined to the Sol system. And because of that, like we actually use like regions of Earth that have geographic significance to the overall theme. So we do get a little bit of that, but it's not like it is mostly the artist, and that's why it's a co-creator thing. It's my co-creator is the one who's creating all the visual identity for how this all looks.
There was a comic done by Image, which was based on the Odyssey. I don't know if you've seen this one, but kind of psychedelic. It is a storyline. I mean, it's like it's like it's not like I haven't read the Odyssey before or whatever.
Right.
But it was very sort of I guess it was there was a whole like scene in Image where they were doing very psychedelic sort of sci-fi stuff, and this was one. And I think it was Odyssey was spelled different. Probably spelled up Odyssey by that, but like
ODY hyphen C,
something or whatever.
Yeah, it's Odyssey, but it's ODY hyphen C. Oh yeah, that's the one with the where they have like the cubist art and kind of like
very sort of which I sometimes like that kind of art, and I think it fit that story. So I do find it interesting when people do different types of artwork that try to match the story.
Yeah. So. I do have some sample. Do I have these downloaded? Probably somewhere. I'll make sure I get them pulled up. But to a straight point, we do have some sample pictures. But before we get into that, so or we kind of like talked about this a little bit. So for you guys as the artists, when you are sort of setting the scene, are you fans of the establishing shot panel, or
Yes.
what are some of your favorite ways of creating a visual identity or using visuals to create exposition?
I do like the establishing shot. I have been trying to a little bit with some do like, which is more of a manga Japanese. We're doing individual sort of like small panels, showing little bits and pieces of things. I actually lead into an establishing shot. One of mine with this girl's planting like a crystal in the ground. And I show her planting a crystal, and then I back up and show where it is. So I kind of almost start out like you don't really know kind of what's going on. And she's planting something, and I back out. So sometimes I will do a little bit of storytelling to lead into the establishing shot. But most establishing shots I do lead into. I don't always do, but like there's some with like you show like a little Blade of the Immortal does a lot of manga with like they show like a corner of a house. If it's like feudal Japan, like they'll show like a bamboo stalks, like a thing of water, and then they show some guy sitting. So they kind of do little snippets of the scene to establish a mood, which I think is interesting. I like to start practicing that a little more. So
I always try to start with one, but sometimes I do switch it up. It just depends on where I have to start and go. So I try to do it first thing if I can, because it's just easier for me when I'm reading a comic to know where I'm at in the comic. So whenever it changes, and sometimes it's kind of challenging to do that because if you've got a writer or not a writer, but a story that seems to be switching a lot, I don't want to be boring and have the first panel of every couple pages like a huge background shot of all of the where we're at.
yeah,
So you do have to get a little creative sometimes when it switches back and forth a little too much, but and I say too much, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
yeah.
When it switches back and forth quite often, you have to kind of that way it just doesn't get but yeah, I'm a huge fan of the establishing shot, and I like to do it whenever I can. I don't like to deviate from it, but I will just to keep things interesting.
Sure.
And also sometimes it can help the story
Yeah.
a little bit. If you're teasing a reveal, like I said, like the one with she's planting the crystal, like you can do yours. If you're like, if some guy's riding into a kingdom, I think of the fantasy comic, maybe shows like a focus on the horse's, feet clipping, like maybe his hand on the brain and stuff. Then you flip the page and you see him going into the city. So you can establish a shot, like a scene, like he's riding a horse, and then you establish what he's going into, which I've seen that stuff done a lot. So.
Yeah. And so I'm going to pull this up here. I'm just going to share my screen for once, which is weird as the writer. I normally don't do this.
The secrets of Tim revealed.
Exactly. Secret number 5, Burger King foot lettuce. That's a reference. So this is something from that may be upcoming in March here. And it may involve World War II and spies and bombers and stuff. So we have some actual fully done pages on it now, which is exciting. But also we can use this to kind of talk about the fact that not only do you have to when you're doing exposition use it to set the physical setting, but also the emotional tone also has to be explained in some way to the reader.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually gets mixed in with both the writing and the art, but the art can do a lot to convey that. So and the art style that this is taken, I love. Like it's very different from the way Quentin drew the Christmas special. What I thought the Christmas special was fantastic and beautiful. And it served exactly like the purpose it needed. But I am a huge fan of French comics. It's like very weird, artsy, slow burn type stuff. And I feel like, and the colorist and inker and pencilist were all, on board with that. So I think also the colorist is specializes in French style comics and Euro comics. So it's been pretty cool. But so after we have a resolution from the last page, we create a establishing shot here, but done at a odd angle, which I think is really cool. Setting up that we are now in a bedroom, and also it creates the emotional motif. We're actually in a military hospital, but it definitely feels very prison-y, kind of reflecting what the character feels. And then we have he commits to a style of coloring and lighting, which I like. And then he's a big fan of color punches, which I 100% support. So in this last page,
you mean brightness of colors,
yeah. So instead of like just having it stay in the same tone, we replace the color with the lighting and punch in red, emulating the character's emotions in this last panel here.
Okay.
So even though like we don't have like the text, because the text will obviously do a lot to explain what's happening in the moment, but there's already like an emotional arc that's happening throughout the page. So I know you guys are typically in the Illustrator and Inker slots, but you both have messed around with coloring as well. So when you're and you can even do like line work to express emotion, which they do a great job of line work and inking on the faces up here. When you're working on these other forms and creating the emotional exposition or the emotional storytelling, how are you thinking about setting the scene or kind of exposing the emotion behind everything, if that's something that crosses your mind?
No.
Mine is in facial expressions. Also angles. It really matters a lot what angles you use, because there's like formulas, and I don't always use them. It's very technical. I've never been to school for this, but just stuff that I've read and picked up on is, if you have a shot where you're looking up at the character, it makes them look powerful. If you have a shot looking down, it makes them look less powerful. So all of these different techniques melded together, you have all these things at your disposal to use to try to get a mood. But really, mine just comes out in the facial expressions, and that's pretty much me. That's what I do. But I don't know. There's so many different techniques that you can use, and then if somebody looking at my work were a bookworm, they'd be like, "Oh, you can't do that. That doesn't really," You're gonna see that all throughout my work because my work is just raw. It's just kind of, however, if I was watching a movie or reading a comic book and I was coming up on a scene like this, what would look the coolest, and what shows what. So sometimes I do stuff and I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing it.
That explains a lot about you, Quinn.
It does. It does. I'm just winging it, just like a lot of other stuff.
I mean, it's yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I usually do body language. I do color my comic, but I tend to focus more on the acting. I'm trying to focus a little more on acting and stuff. Mood to me, like a lot of mood coloring has to do with specific types of stories. Film noir, that type of stuff. Like a horror story, I would do different types of moods. If I'm just telling like my story, like a character arc, I try to keep the same sort of consistent tone through the colors most of the time. And I try. So what I'm using instead of color a lot is trying to use negative space.
Mm-hmm.
Here for instance, I can show you. I'll share one here. I like to share.
Yes.
Would you guys like to see some drawings?
Yes, naturally.
Okay, if these are offensive, I apologize. Actually, no, I don't really apologize. You guys just got to grow a pair.
Pair of what?
That's a good question. A pair of what? Maybe some ears or some eyes or something.
So some very specific low hanging back hair.
That
Yeah.
Okay. So let me see here. Share screen. Okay, so I think you guys can see this. So this is issue 5, and so of my comic. So I again sort of same sort of visual tone, but the show like loneliness, like this guy blows up, and then I switch to like using negative space as a
Yeah.
as a transition, and then the show like this guy is kind of isolated. I show like an image like this. He's in the
Yes.
corner. So I am playing more with negative space, sort of visual motives a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
He's in the world now. He's alone. Time has passed. He's changed clothes, changed clothes and stuff. So yeah, that usually. Did I stop sharing? Where's the stop sharing button? Or did I stop sharing? Did I stop
I think
sharing it?
you already, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's how I'm doing it. And I tend to play with more of my storytelling, and I would like to work more in color. My next comic I'm doing, which will be much shorter than this one, I want to play a little bit more in color and mood. Halloween's my favorite holiday, so it's kind of based on
Yes.
Halloween.
Nice.
A little horror, so I want to play a lot with the colors of Halloween and mood and stuff. So that I think I would play with more colors. It seems like every time I start a project of mine, I kind of challenge myself for specific or focus on specific things to tell the story. My next one wants to be like a straight up action story.
Okay.
So I want to focus more on like fluidity and movement. This one I'm doing Gollings is more like an acting and like, getting emotion across or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm still learning color. So I'm the kind of guy like, I'll do color, but I'm still learning like color theory and a lot of that stuff.
That's me, and that's one of the reasons why I color, but whenever I go into color and I am not technical enough with it
Yeah.
to be going after stuff like mood and stuff. That's why I
Not
think
yet.
I really, really like Roberta's
Oh yeah.
and Barbara Kellberg's stuff is because it's like, I don't know, it's like I color it to get it done and to make it look good.
That's what
But
I
I
do.
mean, they're pros to the point where they're actually coloring with mood in mind, and I think that's absolutely, and I think that's one of the reasons why I
Yeah.
really dig their stuff so much, is because I'm not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. This guy that we have on Wolf Hunter, Martin Mertonen, he, when I think of like the guy who like has like fully swallowed the color wheel and like the was it the basic expressions of color and painting, it's this guy, because like he'll come to me, like he'll ask questions while he's coloring, and he'll say, what exactly is the sub mood we're getting here, because I infer that we're getting here, but what is the specific moment we're happening in this scene, and how would you like me to like shade it? And I was like, but yeah, thankfully I've been a painter for a little bit, so color is what I work with. It's the illustrating part that I cannot do, so I will never be touching that. That is entirely up to people like you who can draw lines and not stroke out.
Well, that's what I think is just amazing, is when you can take somebody who can't necessarily illustrate, but man, the coloring is just, man, you give them something somebody's done and they can just really, really take it to that next level.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about as far as just making it look good. I'm talking about just really pushing that mood into it and really, really giving it more feeling, on top of the expressions that you put in there and the gestures and all that stuff you work really hard on. And then they do that, and it's like, oh man, like, what am I doing? I mean, I really need to learn this color and stuff, but
you could spend a lifetime learning all that coloring stuff. Yeah.
I mean, with illustration, just anatomy and the other stuff, perfecting everything, your craft in the stuff that you have to correct and work on, it takes long enough, but then you add color and it's a totally different dimension.
Oh yeah.
Totally different dimension.
Yeah. It definitely, it all works. It like each thing does its own little thing to create the like exposition, either setting the like, at the very basis, like creating the physical location for the setting and exposition, but then also the way in which you choose to angle something will already start setting that tone, and then the line choices by the inker will further establish that, and then the colorist will mood shade everything essentially. But when it all comes together, it's definitely more than the sum of its parts when everyone's working on like
yes,
the same.
yeah.
We'll get a little bit into the writing side of things. We get into like the telling side of it. We were talking about the showing side of exposition in comics, but it's when you see some like beautiful art on a comic page, it's kind of the first thing that grabs your eye. We also get some almost tropey ways of visual exposition, which are just as popular in comics as they are in movies or film. One of my favorites that will get joked on to no end by anyone in the know is the growing of a beard to show that time has passed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So for some of those like weird little things, do you guys have any favorites or things that like you think of and you're like, I know exactly why they did this and I love it or hate it?
Like showing the passage of time, or just
just in general, if there's like a random like setting trope, or like, oh, this is very clearly done to show scale, or anything like that.
Oh man, I'm trying to think. Nothing jumps to mind.
Yeah,
But-
nothing. I can't really think of anything, but I think sometimes artists fail on showing scale well enough.
Mhm.
I always think it's funny, how they do Galacticus or
Oh, yeah.
Galactus. I always get his name mixed up, but
Battlestar Galactica.
man, whenever they whenever they get his scale or don't show his scale right, it's funny though, because with him, he's always in the same pose,
Yeah.
just always so huge and hulking. But if you try to pose him around too much, he loses his scale. It's so funny.
Yeah.
yeah, you don't see Galactus doing a lot of action poses in space.
Yeah.
Right.
He's just got to sit in there looking menacing.
Yeah, the second you try to, though, he just like gets small. I
Yeah.
don't know why
Yeah.
that is, but it just is. It's a mind thing, I guess.
Although if some artist can pull off Galactus doing like a JoJo pose or something, please do. And
Yeah,
send it to me.
Yeah. No kidding,
Yeah.
really.
because it's it's funny. I had a friend who was talking about the X-Men movies and that they did recently, and he's like, it's like I find it weird that the newest ones are supposed to go through like the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, and he's like, yet all the actors look the same age, and it's like, yeah, well,
Yep.
like maybe they should have given somebody a beard or something, but they did. I mean, it's like, well, by the third movie, these people should be close to their 40s, and yet they look like they're in their 20s. So yeah.
Yeah. Just give Michael Fassbender more crow's feet.
Yeah.
That's exactly kind of what I was fishing for. There is the weird things, like you when you're scaling someone, you always like scale them a certain way, or it looks weird and wonky, or someone always has a specific pose to like show that they're supposed to be domineering, but half the time it just looks like they're taking too deep of a breath when they come into the panel.
The one thing, and Jim Lee's classic for this, are sort of always making guys look like they're puffing their chest out, but he always draws this sharp shadow right underneath the rib cage, so it looks like somebody's just continuously holding their breath in, like never breathing out.
Yeah.
It's like it's like, dude, you just want to you're waiting for them to exhale.
Yep. So I'll talk a little bit about the writing side of things for this, and we'll bounce it back and forth like others, because we have also all messed around with writing. So writing that scene I shown earlier. I'm a fan of the interior thought caption. Well, for this series, not so much in the new one I'm writing, but in this series definitely, because I like the noir feel of it.
Yeah.
What makes a good noir like detective story, I think, is the inner monologue. When it comes to something like a written format.
So, quick question then:
yes.
Do you prefer Blade Runner with or without the narration?
I prefer it with.
Okay,
yeah.
Some people, some people don't. I've seen the one that I can go either way. I can see why it's a little more science fictiony, but it's weird that because it was supposed to be film noir, and so they added
Yeah.
that in because that's
Mhm.
like a staple of film noir
Yeah.
stuff. A lot of people didn't like it.
Yeah, I've seen all the cuts, and with the extended scenes with the narration, I feel like I've done it does a lot to because it's science fiction, but it's also a very poetic movie. There's a lot of
It is.
yeah. I mean, Roy Batty's monologue at the end is like the entire mood of the movie can be summed up in that one monologue.
And the funny thing is, I heard he ad-libbed that entire thing,
He did. That was
which I thought was just. I heard that, I'm like,
it's-
no way.
yeah. That's Roy Batty narrating, improving his monologue is like my version of the nerd boyfriend who says when they're watching Lord of the Rings, always has to bring up Viggo Mortensen broke his foot kicking that helmet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like there's two kinds of nerd boyfriends that ruin a movie for their girlfriend. One always says that monologue is narrated. The other one says Viggo Mortensen broke his foot.
Yeah.
Every time they watch it.
I think the funniest thing to me, I always point out to people, is in one of the and now that I've seen it, I can never unsee it. And I don't know, maybe you guys will know this. So when Boromir's dying and they have all the orcs around, for a split second, for actually a few seconds, you look behind. One of the orcs is actually sitting up.
Yes,
It's supposed to be dead, and I don't think they caught it, and I don't think he must have not. Maybe he didn't realize they were filming. I don't know. I thought that was funny.
Since it's been brought up, I feel like I'm legally obligated to share the fact that I have spent a lot of money all at once on all these.
Oh no!
It's all the
Pop
it's all the
bottles.
yeah, it's all the Pop Store
I
Blade
didn't
Runner.
even
Yeah,
know. I
yeah.
didn't know they made. I the only thing I have a go figure. This was that I got a Blade Runner, and I was surprised they even have this. This is an actual Christmas ornament, but somebody actually made and it was great. It was like a few bucks, but
Yeah.
this little thing you can hang this in your Christmas tree. But I'm like, yeah, it's the Blade
Yeah.
Runner, and I'm like,
That's
that's
cool.
awesome. So I just keep it as a model.
Yeah.
It doesn't do
Yeah.
anything. It doesn't move or anything. But when I saw that, I'm like, what the? Why is there a Blade Runner Christmas ornament? Like that was like the last thing. But I'm like, that's cool.
All right, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the association you make.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not.
But yeah, so I'm a big fan of the interior caption, for interior narration caption for stories like this. So in that scene that I had shown, the entire time, Captain Willard is essentially talking to himself, and
Okay.
overall the story of Wolf Hunter is the emotional story is a man finding purpose to overcome his post-traumatic stress after suffering a pretty grievous wound and kind of losing that initial sense of purpose. It's it's like train watching. It's about a man finding himself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about Train Spotting?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's actually I described it as planes, trains, and automobiles meets a murder on the Orient. But it's the idea of a man finding himself through this canned mystery, which is kind of set in the way that it is due to a lot of extreme factors. They can't just ransack everyone's luggage due to a law that was passed just the year prior. Essentially their version of the Rightful Search and Seizure Act over here, where like you need to have a warrant to actually look through some belongings. It's done through the Official Secrets Act. So unless someone was a spy and was confirmed as a spy, you could not look through their belongings. Once you could, though, everything is free game. The other thing is that they're on this moving train that's on essentially a day trip, but it's moving at high speeds because there's a risk of bombing. So the spy that they're hunting can't just jump off, otherwise he's going to break his legs. And then where's he going to go if he's in the middle of hostile territory?
Yeah.
So it's this very like things need to happen quickly and in a set period of time. And there's just a lot of these factors that are like bolting in this little bit points of pressure that cook the entire time. And so that's the fun I had with it. But
so your story does the whole story take place on the train?
The main plot of the story takes place on the train. It gets set up during the Battle of Britain during one of the during the summer offensive when I think it's the second or third Battle of Dover,
Okay.
where one of the big dive bombing raids bombed the port. Captain Willard is fighting there. He gets injured. The story commences. And it ends in Liverpool in a in anti-car chase, where they're in a car while Liverpool is in one of the worst bombing raids that it experienced during the war. And these are events that actually happened on this scale of like this event that happened. So I just said like little things that like could have happened between like three events that actually did happen. And so that was some of the fun with,
Oh,
the exposition was given to me. And as a writer, I could have set up some of that for historian buffs by just putting in the date and the location. And if they had read like the history of World War II, like I know what happened in Liverpool that day, or I know what battle this is. Or the Tizard mission is actually like a huge thing for fans of geopolitics because of what it did to strengthen the alliance between the United States, Canada, and Great Britain. But the weird stuff that went around with that is also just kind of funny. I took something that's kind of funny and made it a little more serious. For those of you who don't know, during the Tizard mission, James Bowen was carrying the Magnetron, the prototype for small craft-sized radar, so they could put radar inside, Hawker Hurricanes and Spitfires, and actually be able to detect German U-boats and German planes. Before they got into striking distance. So this device was essentially the linchpin they needed to break the blockade on Britain. Bowen is supposed to take that on a train ride from London to Liverpool, get on a boat, take it to Canada, come down to the United States. When he gets on the train, he loses it.
Just accidentally loses it.
Yes. Essentially, an overactive porter was grabbing his stuff, took it, and was going to put stuff away. And Bowen had to run out and find the dude and actually recover it. But the actual train ride is not really talked about too much in his diary. We get a lot of the boat ride and stuff beforehand, but we don't get a whole lot of train rides. So, what if that's the cover story? And it wasn't that he lost it, but that it was actively stolen. So that's the fun we have there. Yeah. But it is one thing where you're writing this exposition, and if you're writing in a historical setting, the exposition is given to you to kind of work with and do justice to. But I can do things for when I'm writing and creating the scene and an exposition for history buffs. Like I say, I just need to put the date and the location, and they already probably got it. But for your average reader who's just in there because they like noir thrillers or like spy books, and they may not know all the details of the summer of 1940 in Great Britain, other than World War II was happening.
Yeah, that's probably what I would.
Yeah,
I would just think I know there's a war or something going on.
Yes. There's a big global conflict. I think it might be one in the series.
Yeah, they even numbered it. It was like a sequel to another conflict.
Yes.
And
international conflict number dos.
And it was even bigger and worse than the first one, just like a good sequel to a movie.
Yeah.
It was a sequel to the war. It was bigger. It was better. They
got a bigger budget for explosives.
Yeah.
We joked about it because it was terrifying.
Yeah, when you look at Indiana Jones, being a period piece, kind of the same thing. You got a historical fiction thing going on there, and hopefully hopefully nobody was watching that too hard, and hey, it's 1942. They didn't even have that kind of thing in 1942.
They got some of the weird placement of where people were a little off in Indiana Jones, but what I think is really interesting is it is based on actual projects that the I forgot the name of the unit, but essentially translates to the Super German armament force. It's like, I think it's like Uber Aryan something or whatever, but it's the group that is the occult that everyone remembers Wolfenstein from. The fact that when you read into wait, this what? There were actual projects that they went to, okay, we need to excavate all this stuff in Egypt and Mesopotamia to see if we can find any magical artifacts to further our crusade.
Yep.
They really did do that.
Spear of Destiny, all that stuff.
Yeah. So it's the fact that like they recovered King Leonidas' spear. That was a big thing, like where the Greeks did not like that. Yeah, it's when we were into something like the weird like the thing where like they find some weird like setting and like we can do with it, so we can work with this. But when you're creating that exposition for someone who's come into it, it was in there because like World War II was interesting, or I like spy stuff. You have to have characters who can do the telling of it or do the exposition dump in a way that does not feel like an exposition dump.
Right.
In a military setting, that's easy because the briefing. Everyone loves a good military briefing because it makes you feel cool and important. To be in the room with Churchill as he's talking to like one of the top spies and one of the top researchers in England at the time, and so
is that what I'm supposed to be feeling?
Yes, exactly. So when you can get things like that, where like, oh, there's you're handed the dossier with like all the important files in it and all this like cool spy stuff, but really it's just the writer being like, how do I explain what exactly is happening and why it's happening and who needs to be aware of what in order for this to progress. If anyone played the Medal of Honor games, you got really into exposition dumps because that was all the narrative in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played those years ago.
Oh yeah,
years ago.
Long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Back on the PlayStation 1. When movement was done with the D-pad.
Oh God, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
I stormed the beach on that game.
Oh yeah.
Now they can't figure out what to do with the D-pad.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do with it?
It's like, I don't know. Maybe put a flashlight on there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like some of the examples of telling in a comic book is using these interior narration things or having a character who can either insert for the audience. Oh, they're one of my favorite comics curse words is they have a character in there who's designed just to be an audience insert. It's a magical koala that can explain stuff to a person who's an amnesiac. So it's like it's a really fun way of doing the
what
audience.
A really good tool. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, everyone's used to the audience insert. It's kind of old at this point. We're like, this character's brand new. They need to learn everything that the rest of the characers know. But
yeah, you could just have a koala just pop up on the corner of the page.
Yes,
with a little
by
information
the way,
bubble.
Hey, remember that thing you did 5 years ago? No, you don't. You forgot everything. Well, this is what it did.
Yeah.
What was they have for the Olympics they have a panda bear that's a mascot.
Yeah.
And I actually saw this is because you're talking about koala. I actually saw a medal ceremony because they don't show them that much, and somebody came up and gave him like a panda bear surrounded with like a gold laurel leaf. I'm like, is that a medal? Like, did he give him a statue of like a little cartoon panda? Like, I was trying to figure out like what did he just give them? Like, do you get a medal? It's like, no, you get the statue for gaining number 1 in the. I was like, what? But yeah. Weird.
Yeah. That's the well that is I don't want to get into it, but given China's track record, they're trying to rehabilitate and bring the pandas back out of extinction. We can give them that.
Yes.
Yep.
So yeah, what are some of your guys' thoughts on exposition with writing, either yourself or what you enjoy in practice? Or
it's funny. I do like some. It depends on I think the type of story to me. I don't mind exposition. I know like the Sith comic I'm doing does not do a lot of that. I tend to find stories. I've always liked stories that read really fast, like the page turners. I do sometimes. I don't mind exposition if it gets redundant. That starts to annoy me if like there was a Star Wars comic that do you guys remember there was I think it was called the Dark Empire. I think that's what it was called. And Dark Horse put it out. The first one was awesome. Luke Skywalker goes all evil and stuff. And then they made a sequel and I was all excited for it. But it was like the worst exposition. Like they would actually show Princess Leia and Han Solo running down the hallway and there'd be a caption literally on top that says Princess Leia and Han Solo runs down the hallway. And I'm like, this is you're killing me, people. Yeah. I'm like, I see what's going on. I think there's definitely a good balance. I think inner monologues could be good, but I do think people get caught up. One person who was just like, I loved them and I hated him was Claremont. Chris Claremont, like, I love your man, but sometimes you would do the inner
Yeah,
monologue exposition. Like, I don't need to
it's
know what she's
yeah,
doing at all times. So yeah,
yeah. Kermit X-Men. It's a classic, and it's great to have read it. Difficult to reread now.
it is.
Yeah,
There's a lot of exposition.
yeah.
Just like the other one that's like just horrible in exposition. I started rereading some of the earlier Spawn comics. Oh
Oh yeah.
my god, Todd, I get it. He's dead. He's a Spawn dude. I mean, yeah. Depends on the comic too. If if you're doing a straight up action comic, less words I think is more. If you're doing a detective comic, inner monologues and stuff like that, I think work. Like you're saying,
Yeah.
I think it just depends on the style of comic or story you're trying to do. So
Yeah.
As long as you're consistent,
I am not.
don't
consistent.
switch it up. If you're gonna
Yeah.
do the narration and the all that stuff, keep it going. Don't change mid game.
Have
To
something
afraid to
from
read
the
some
speaker.
words. This is me. I knew Roland would jump in once I started talking about this. He's like, "Oh, Aaron and words." So yeah, I was prepared for this, Mr. Roland. No, I do. There are some comics like I like Claremont. I can read it, and I don't mind reading words. But sometimes I admit there's a part of me that I'm like, okay, I'll like go check the next page, like, what's happening? Can I get like come on, let's move it along. Let's move it along. So yeah, it depends on the story, but I've noticed myself as I get older. I quit a video game because the people in the game would not shut up. Oh my,
Yeah.
they just wouldn't shut up, and I'm just like, I remember I finally thought they got to the end of a conversation, like, okay, I get it. This is what we're doing next. I get it. And then some girl in the game was like, what about this? What about? And I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I can't take it anymore. I think it depends. I mean, if you bore your reader with it, yeah, they're gonna chuck it. So he's writing for the new reader.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
true.
don't know.
I definitely think that now we're in this weird cycle where every 6 issues is someone's first issue, but with at least the big two. But
Right.
there definitely is like the value in that. I'm a big fan of recaps. That's my favorite thing about modern X-Men, because that's what I read like all the time.
Yeah.
Is the first page is always the like 2 paragraphs. I'm like, here's what happened last time on
Yeah.
there's also been a few of them where like it's literally like the first page is actually just panels cut from the previous couple issues, and then countdown to was it Countdown to Secret Wars did that, where they were every issue in the Countdown was essentially an extended like 32 pager. So you got a lot of value in that run. I actually just gave all mine away to a school because they wanted some comics, and I had a bunch of Silverline comics as well as like 2 I had an ammo crate worth of books that I haven't read in years. So I'm like, there you go. But where the first page was literally just like it was the the last time on the type of thing you get in a TV show, which if you're on a monthly cycle, that can actually be pretty helpful.
It can be.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm curious. And so I've played video games, and always can be some. But I was thinking, are comics the only medium that regularly does that? Because I'm thinking like books, movies, and the other things don't give you a real recap. Now I know
They don't-
Netflix will give you recaps.
Yes, yeah. Books, I think books don't, but also it's the weird thing where you're like some things are going to stick with you a little more, but the books also do have that same thing where they do write for the new reader. If it's like a well-known trilogy or working with a publisher that's used that sort of thing to encourage you to do, a bit more exposition in the first third of the book.
To explain it.
Which is also kind of funny because if you're Silverline, our readers might have like a couple quarters of the year before the next issue you want to run or whatever. If you're Marvel or DC, it's every month or whatever. If you're reading a novel, it's 1 to 10 years before the next entry in the series.
Yeah.
Or never if you're Jar Jar.
Because like the original Star Wars movies and stuff did not. Like I was trying to remember, like the old Star Wars movies did not give you recaps. They just put you in.
Right. Well, you did have the intro scroll actually, so they might.
But even in the intro scrolls, they did not do a recap. They
Well,
just talked
they did.
about
Well,
more.
so as somewhat of a Star Wars historian, the intro scroll, the way it's formatted and everything, from Empire Strikes Back onward, the first paragraph is 2 lines, giving the resolution, the start and the resolution of the last movie or the last entry in canon. Then it is the here were 3. Actually, knowing Pat Rothfuss, he's probably finishing it up in between working with Wizards of the Coast. I think he has talked about it passing back and forth with his editor, so I think we are due for that. But so then the next paragraph is going to be context for what's happening, and then the third paragraph is the minutes before what starts on the screen.
Yeah.
So it is that kind of weird thing where, and also that you do see that in some comic formats where if you're having an ongoing series, it may not be exactly moment to moment, the last panel on the last page to first panel on the next page, where they'll say like, okay, some time has passed and we're in this new thing now. And so the ongoing story is still happening. It's still related to X conflict. The Apocalypse saga was a lot like this. Age of Apocalypse, where we'd cut between like different things that are happening and say like, oh, this has happened elsewhere. But and they use that time to not only explain like the minutes leading into it, but what had happened the last time a little bit. So you'll have moments where you say, hey, you remember when this happened because you did this in the last issue and it boned us in this thing that no one saw, but it's a cool thing that we'll make a side series about later on because you can make money off that. But they'll find there's a bunch of weird ways you can cheat it.
I don't know. It's funny. My Godlings, I do not do recap, but then my book is supposed to be read as one whole story. I mean,
Yeah.
Even though I split it into multiple issues, that was not the original intention of the book.
Yeah.
So
it's like Dune in that it's a novel, but it's initially released as periodicals.
Right.
Yeah. So Aaron has wrote the next Dune. So what do we have heard?
Yeah. And I mean, it just matters. I mean, if you're doing a monthly series and stuff, and if the recap is not hard, like Spider-Man, like got powers of a spider, fights crime. I mean, okay, then we get the gist of it.
Easy.
Mine would be a little harder to explain. So I don't know. For some odd reason, recaps they seem to help me, but there's always I always feel like I'm missing out. Even with recaps, I always feel like, wow, I should go read the other ones because I'm missing out or something.
They do also kind of encourage that because again, comics as a business, it's kind of like trading cards, or like you got to collect them all.
Yeah.
Or Pokemon, both. But it's there so that way if you're it's your first thing picking up, you can. If it's your first time picking up, you can jump immediately into it. Like, okay, I know the context of what's about to happening, and then it also gives you that interest. Like, oh, I actually want to see what that looks like, so I'm going to see if I can order that back issue. Right. So it serves a dual purpose, both from the the narrative side of just getting them into it, as well as the we would like to make money on our publishing. Please go buy our other products.
Now, strange enough, I haven't read a text-only recap will work. It depends on the recap. I mean,
I like the way
did that.
Yeah, I like the way they're currently done in X-Men because it's non-intrusive. It's just it's just first interior. It's just like, hey, here's what happened last time. Get into it. But depending on how much someone does it, because I have seen someone where they go full bore and like I don't want a novel right now. I want to see Cyclops shoot I-beams. So I think text-only recaps work if they are concise, which is also a rule for writing in general, being concise
and to the point, and also give just a general enough that you can pick up more as you go along. I don't know. I'm not against them. I just know I've tried to think of recaps for this story, and I'm like, that would be. I mean, I get to issue 11. I mean, it would just get longer and longer. So I'm like, you guys may just have to. But then again, this is supposed to be read as one book.
Yeah.
So, because I mean, even in my comic, I have chapter breaks, like actual chapter 1, 2, 3, like. So, I just had to split it into issues because you want to disseminate it somewhat into the world, and so you start with smaller bits of it. But that was never the original intention of this series.
Yeah, remember, I think. Because didn't we have text only recaps in Kalis? I think I just have the Kalis trade now because I ordered the trade out because it had the cover art on that was fantastic. But I believe I think my singles were actually part of the group I donated to the school because ABS always be selling. Hey kids, you're still selling comics.
I know.
Yeah, tell your parents to look this up.
Do you like comic books? Do you like to read?
Yes. But I think on the inside of Chaos, I think we also had some text only recaps on that. And I don't think we're doing any of that with Wolf Hunter, but I was thinking originally if we were going to do a recap, it's going to be like a like the Middle of Honor style dossier where it's just like this, like, you know, classified file 126. Just like a couple lines of like the field report essentially from the last issue.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Especially if you could do like, I think Kalis did it where certain things look like they're redacted or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like those. That was actually like some of my. Also, I think if you can do a text on your cap and then still use it to add flavor, I think that also does a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, and I mean, I think recaps help, but I mean, then again, when I think about recaps in comic books, they really just kind of explain the basic premise of the series. They don't really like, even though the X-Men are mutants, fear and hate and feared. Definitely, but they don't explain like last episode.
Now they do.
They don't really do that.
They do that a bit more now because of how insane the Krakoa arc has gotten. Because after we're like, by the way, here's Captain Krakoa. He may be a god. Again, like there's modern X-Men is like watching primetime 24 right now. It is just like. If you miss the last episode, essentially you're missing like an hour in like this 10-hour cycle.
I read the first few books of Krakoa, and then my friend, I don't know if he stopped. I was getting it from my friend, but if I get it from the library, I mean, so far it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't like a super big fan of the idea of like when there was some mutination that I thought, well, doesn't that kind of take away from Xavier's dream to live in harmony if he's like got this nation who's gonna, we're mutants and you're human. So I felt that was a little weird, but it did have some good stuff too.
That's amazing, and it does. Yeah, you do learn a lot more about why Xavier had this change of heart, especially in.
You mean why he's Magneto now, and Magneto is Professor X?
Yeah, well, I forget that's Magneto, but yeah, we get that actually happened in Axis. That was funny, but like that literally happened. But and when you get into House of X, where they how Moira McTaggart essentially like I was able to convince Xavier to be more proactive and then also talk Magneto down from being so hardline, and like, hey, maybe if you guys just find a middle ground, you can actually get something done instead of constantly butting heads. And then they're like, oh wait, what if we took this approach to humans? And humans are like, what if he just went away? And like, okay, we'll get an island, but we'll try it again.
And we'll get our own island, and it'll be great. I know it's supposed to be a mutant paradise. Yeah, like I said, I kind of gave up at the Claremont's run. The X-Men to me got kind of bad, and every once in a while I'll check in.
Yeah.
But I don't know. X-Men since has been kind of a hit or miss with me.
Sure. Yeah. I'm definitely a fan of what's happening in X-Force with Ben Piercy writing it, because I can't imagine that any writer could make me like love Black Tom Cassidy as a favorite character.
He's such
Black Tom Cassidy is my favorite X-Men right now.
Isn't he?
Really?
Juggernaut's brother, or wasn't he related to Juggernaut in some way? I know Xavier's
Juggernaut's brother. Black Tom Cassidy was
his friend, right?
Yeah, as part of Juggernaut's crew. When Juggernaut got the gem, they joined up with the Brotherhood. And then Black Tom went off and joined. Was it the Marauders? Yeah, he joined Sinister's Marauders, and then started freelancing after that. And then now with this happening, he's you realize like why he's like never fit in with the X-Men. It fit in with like every other mutant group, and like some like he's got a big heart. He's just a very sad Creole man.
He's a very sad man.
He's tired. He's wants everyone to be safe. He's when Xavier gets hurt, like he's like the first person to cry because he like the pain of all mutants is his pain. It's
Yeah, how far is Ed Brubaker? It's not Ed Brubaker. Who's the guy writing the Krakoa storyline? The guy Hickman. Is he still with it? I heard rumors that he was leaving. Is that true?
He was leaving the main run as the daily writer to take on more of an editorial role. But essentially, what had happened is after Brubaker did his thing, and that's also another schism. We're getting off topic, but I mean, we're in the last 30 of the show. This is what we're known for. But and also Tommy. Absolutely not. I love the Boba Fett show. I do wish it had more Boba Fett though. It is weird that it's not it's Boba Friends is what the show is. It's the Boba
I haven't
Friends.
even seen it.
And the new Obi-Wan, I'm so stoked on Obi-Wan.
Did they show a trailer for that already?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah, and
was
also
that today?
I think it might have been a little bit ago, but and also Star Wars Eclipse looks really good. But after I mean, the division is like, are you a Claremont X-Men fan or a Brubaker X-Men fan? Because they both had like these massive runs on it. And after that, X-Men went to this phase where they're kind of pulling writers in and out like other main runs. And they kind of got lost and muddled because it wasn't as consistent. They want to do something about that. So like, hey, Hickman, do you want to? You wrote a pretty good X-Men line a while ago. Do you want to like just control it for 5 years? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. I have run one of the like longest running comic franchises ever and just make it money.
Yeah.
Why not? And he set up this whole thing, and that's also another reason for Krakoa is it's a new setting-ish, so it has plans for longevity. So when new writers come in, they have more ground to play around with. They're not stuck in Winchester or Utopia.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah, so he created this whole thing where like this 5-year plan, and then now he's stepping off and like, okay, now he's going to handle editorial because they set up all these other lines in it, and it's going to be the same thing where they're going to try running it in cycles again.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the last
if you were playing Silverline Bingo and you had Tim goes on a 10-minute tirade about X-Men, you can check that off now.
And check that off, yeah. And I really set him up for it, so that's my bad. And but yeah, I think the last superhero comic I really got into is reading the old Wonder Woman. There was a bunch of omnibuses they put out.
Oh yeah.
And I haven't been reading the new. I have a hard time reading new comics. I read omnibuses or whatever, but I don't know. I think I'm just horrible because I just don't set aside a budget to buy new comics. I usually go in the store and just buy whatever I think looks cool.
So my nearest comic shop is up in Kaiser, which is the other side of Salem for me. We have one that's on our town, but it's mostly just a hobby shop. It's better for just getting cards or board games. Like their comic selection is just whoever sells them small, a collection. Yeah. So my actual thing, and it's actually helped me stay up on my comic game quite a bit, is just subscribing to stuff on Comixology. Yes, I'm reading it digitally, but there's no wrong way to read a comic as long as you're reading it. So just hitting that, like, it's monthly deposited into my library. I'm like, perfect. I'm up on it.
Yeah, isn't Comixology actually going, like I think we talked about last Wednesday, like they're being bought out by, I mean, Amazon owns them, but
Amazon already owns them, and now what they're doing is they're taking over like essentially the Kindle side of Amazon Comics.
Okay.
Yeah, because for a while you could get when you're buying comics on Amazon, you can get them paperback, digital through Comixology, or Kindle. Which the fact that Kindle lasted this long for comics was so weird to me, given how well thrown together the Comixology software is.
Now, I got a dumb question with the Kindle thing. Can you read Kindle? I don't have a Kindle, but can I just read it on my
you can get Kindle Reader apps for your PC or for your phone. I have one. Yeah, I have like 1 or 2 Kindle books, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially they put out a very vague statement saying like, "Hey, we're making our partnership even more serious." So short of a proposal or invitation to move in together, it's just essentially taking over that part of the digital print game as opposed to Amazon essentially having 2 fronts for a software that no one really uses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I do like is eventually if they put it, because you can already do a thing where if you can pre-order, you can buy singles off Amazon, which I think is really interesting. But you can pre-order like your trade volumes or omnibuses from Amazon, have it shipped to you the day it releases. So like when it's the day it hits shops, it's the same day it's on your doorstep. I'd like that integration into Comixology. So if I did that, have like, imagine the expense and delivery would be exorbitant, but having like a monthly mailed comic book would be.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
that was I mean what they used to do in the old days.
Yeah. But yeah, the cost of infrastructure and logistics, I imagine, is, especially with the scale of everything now, it might be pretty insane.
Yeah, it's the collectability I think would stop people a little bit of like, well, because my mailman, when he puts like magazines, he doesn't always treat them as like,
Yeah, I know. Barry from our partners at Kablam had posted that thing they got from UPS, and it looked like the guy had just like drop kicked it into the office.
I think strangely enough, all the comics I buy or read anymore, I get from Indie Planet. I don't know. I just like finding new stuff, and I find a whole wealth of new stuff.
Yeah. I think it's also like one of the great things about Comixology too is the fact that they have like, in their main panel they have a featured independent type thing, and and you can just go through and like find like single owner products or whatever, and just like, oh, I'm going to subscribe to this now because I wouldn't be able to get anywhere else.
Yeah.
But yeah. What I it's a thing I'm going to find the omnibus for. Speaking of though, I found out today that apparently back in 2018, DC did a crossover with Black Lightning and Han Kun Fui.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I need it immediately.
Speaking of weird things, did you guys see that new Justice League Dinosaur series they're doing?
No.
They're doing the 6-part series where I think the artists worked on like Murder Angel or Murder Hawk or Murder Falcon.
Okay.
Some other series. I like his art, but it's like the Justice League all dinosaurs in ancient times. I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah,
I had some guy online complaining about it. I'm like, yeah, but that's fun.
Yeah, that's that's the classic Leonard Nimoy argument. Like, stop being so caught up in canon because you can't control the rest of your life. Like, be a fan and enjoy where it's taking you.
Right.
Like, the more ridiculous things can get sometimes, the more I love it.
Did you check? I don't know what it's called, but like just Justice League as dinosaurs. I'm sure you'll find it.
Obviously, if there's like a hard set tone and it's like the same name run and it changes like the tone halfway through, it's like that's a little weird. But if it's like, okay, here's Marvel Avengers, here's Marvel Avengers Zombies, it's like perfect, like, awesome.
Yeah, that stuff is fun. It looked pretty fun to me.
Yeah.
But I saw somebody. I'm like, oh, I haven't been to it. The one series I do want to read, and I need to. I think it's collected as The Last Ronin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read that one yet.
Yeah, I just picked up. I got a lot of things picked up, but I'm going back and rereading X-Men X-Force Apocalypse Solution.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, that was one of like my favorite things. Like, because that was at a point where I'd gotten to X-Men, I was like engaging like my nerd habit, and then like this like gem of just like hardcore X-Men violence and like cool like God stuff dropped, and I'm like, oh. Yeah, everything that I wanted as a teenage child. But and
it's how is this an older series or
it's like early 2000s.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. It also has a fantastic art palette, color palette, and also picked up the Keys of Wisdom or Tenets of Wisdom, whatever it is. But the thing that's all from Marvel Max, which if anyone remembers that, you're an OG.
I thought that was still around.
It's still around, but they don't really print anything.
Okay.
Yeah, because Marvel now is able to like essentially do their M17 stuff underneath their own title.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that was Max was originally their way of getting around like any sort of like grading issues. You guys are like, that's not Marvel. We can have a really violent stuff over here.
Which seemed, I think, to me, I like what's the first like title to go Max?
It's one of the Punisher,
okay.
yeah.
Like
and then they did a lot of Punisher through Max. I think Punisher Origins, which is like this straight up like Rambo in Vietnam with Frank Castle. But this was Pete Wisdom with MI17 doing like the hard-boiled detective stuff, trying to like deal with like a ferry terrorist plot, like ferries as terrorists.
Like actual like medieval fairies or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
Like a classic fantasy creature.
Like classic fantasy creatures, yeah, trying to blow up London.
That makes sense. That's...
Yeah, it's and
it can happen.
He's very sassy and I love it. But yeah, that's
what was the other? I saw like I know the Moon Knight trailer is
Oh.
that TV show is coming out. I'm kind of curious how they do that. I did like the costume.
Yeah, we were joking on. I'm on another show called Keys to the Geekdom.
Yeah,
and we were joking about what if the the tablets of Khonshu. What if we're like, what if we take it? So MCU is more or less in our Earth. It's like, what if the tablets of Khonshu were like the Hobby Lobby tablets that they got in trouble for stealing from Iraq? and Mark Spector is one of the mercenaries who went out to pilfer those, gets shot there. Like that'd be a really funny deep cut. I doubt they'll do that, but that'd be really funny.
Well, they and one of the episodes looked like he was like beating up a werewolf. I think they're putting.
I think that's gonna be Midnighter. I like the mummy costume. Ideally, I would have liked if they had the suit, the 3-piece suit with the pullover mask that he got in the Lemire.
Yeah,
yeah. That suit it's so good. It's really hard seeing Moon Knight in like the classic costume now, but I kind of like the mummy wraps. It's thematic, but it is a little. It is weird not having it's like the dark shadow for a face if he's wearing the robe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you guys, and I'm just like asking you guys' opinion and stuff. So what did you guys think of the Halo trailer?
I don't know. Red flags went up for me when I heard that the showrunners of that show already quit.
Yeah.
Really?
That hasn't even come out yet. And they're like, yeah, we're done.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It looks like it's going to be a slightly higher quality sci-fi channel show. So
yeah,
I'm not expecting a whole lot from it. I'm very interested in the names they pulled for it though, because they got it's Master Chief working with a new team, not the team that he works with in canon. So it's not Fred, Linda, and Kurt. It's not Red Team, but the Red Teamers. The guys who were against Chief's team in training on Reach, who then went off and I think became a different team.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be him working with Soren, Kai, and I can't remember the other one, but like they already got the details super right. They got Soren's like the casting for Soren's fantastic, but shaved head dude, very serious stare. And Kai, the detail on her, because like the one thing that like they really mentioned about her, because she doesn't get all the time in the books, is the fact that she was very funny. Liked to talk and run around, and she had a pink strand of hair in her hair that she was able to keep all throughout training, and like was inexplicably able to keep updated. Like it was even a point where like John's like, I don't understand how her hair is doing this. And they have her with that in the trailer, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool actually.
So what do you mean? So the guy who played Master Chief and all of them have all left?
No, the showrunners are the essentially the heads of the writers' room.
Oh
yeah. So they're
yeah. Nobody really knows, why.
I knew originally it was going to be the idea was to do it as a limited series because it's going to be an alternate timeline anyway. So I don't know if it's in relation to that or if it is just like if they got another author or if there's some sort of
or if they're like, hey, this is crap and we don't want to really be tied to it.
Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see. But
would you be up for if they did a Destiny TV show?
We may be getting that. Because I don't know if you saw the news. Sony bought Bungie.
Yep.
And one of the main reasons they said, and the weird thing is, but as part of the agreement, Bungie maintained their independence as a publisher. So none of their products get published through Bungie. So they can put it to any platform they want to. And they maintain full creative control as well as a full executive board. So Bungie is remaining as an independent operation, even if they have a parent company.
So basically, it's almost like they bought them just so they can like make.
Just so they have the property. So they have the properties. In theory, they also one of the main things they said is that Sony does not know how to compete in a games as a service platform. So because all Sony's big games recently have been single player, but everything that's put on big on Steam right now, everything that's big on Xbox is all games of service, and those have big numbers. So being able to borrow Bungie's expertise on that with how big Destiny has been for how long. But also, they said some interesting things in that Bungie has been committed to multimedia projects for a long time. And Bungie has already had comics with Destiny, as well as a cookbook, which I have. But also cooking stream coming out close to Witch Queen. For those of you who follow my Twitch. But they have said that they want to expand the Destiny franchise into more forms of media. So you might be getting a Sony produced Destiny movie or TV show.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I can see them, and I played a little bit of Destiny, and I mean, you could actually do a completely separate storyline and still have it work. You don't.
I'd love to have like a TV show or something set back like during the Dark Age. I was like the Warlords, where we have it's about like Lord Shaxx and Lord Saladin essentially trying to carve out like these small independent like tribes while humanity is like fall into decay and collapse.
That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. I think I know they bought Bungie, and my nephew's he has Xbox, he loves Destiny. And so I don't know. I was like, oh man, but they said they're gonna stay multi-platform.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay. So it seemed like they bought more of the property.
Yes, yeah. The actual contract is super insane how Bungie got such a good deal out of it. I mean, because it's in writing that anything they put out, it's their name on it, not Sony's. They can put it wherever they want to. And the value they're bought at, Sony had paid them $1.3 million in employee bonuses for staying on through the transition. And so it came out to some odd million per employee.
Wow.
Yeah. So Bungie's like, we're maintaining all executives, all our staff is staying on.
That's crazy that they would. I mean, it's weird. I mean, what Bungie went from Xbox to Activision, then they went independent, and now they're bought by Sony.
Yeah. It's definitely like some of the fun things with entertainment business, entertainment law. Because if you're looking for stability, entertainment may not be for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're but it's now the amount of resources these guys get to create their vision or their game, like the amount of passion that everyone there has for like Destiny and what they're working on. I mean, if you follow any of the people on Twitter, you know that like they live, eat, breathe Destiny. Like some of them will probably like will have like a ghost put on their coffin when they die. So they're like the resources they've been given now. I imagine that's like they're probably over the moon with that.
Yeah, it's probably why they did it, just to get that bump. I mean, they could survive. I mean, Bungie could survive independently. I'm just glad EA didn't get him.
Oh yeah, sure.
I think that's why, because EA just pretty much destroys everything. Yeah. Like, hey, they come in, hey, do this game, okay, but do buy perimeters, okay. The game didn't sell. Now we're just going to destroy your company because you didn't make it. It's they still, yeah. When I saw it, I still remember when Xbox bought Rare, and they thought they were getting a gold mine, and then Rare's had a hard time hitting that out of the park.
Yeah.
So interesting. It's weird because I know, Xbox has been, Microsoft's been like gobbling up companies, and so it's interesting to see Sony kind of actually start doing that, because they
well, I think they did that in response to Xbox buying, what was it?
They bought Bethesda.
Microsoft also just bought something recently. I can't remember the name.
I can't remember what it was, but one of the reasons why they purchased Bungie was because Xbox had bought something else. And they were like, okay,
Microsoft had bought Activision Blizzard,
Yeah, you're going to buy that, we'll buy this.
Yeah, and both deals had been in the works for years, or not years, but months at least. But I imagine they probably heard the rumor mill. It's like, okay, we need to start playing other Activision at the same time. And I think at that same time, Bungie was looking for some of these to at least partner with on expanding their multimedia side of things.
Oh, okay.
And so when Sony, which is primarily known for PlayStation, but also their film franchises,
right,
is like oh hey.
Yeah, they're a multimedia company.
Yeah,
more than Microsoft is. That's for sure.
Microsoft tried their hand at making Xbox TV, which if you remember, the Xbox originals that came out on 360, they were not good.
Yeah. Yep.
But Sony did. Was it Powers?
I think
first season was not hot, but second season picked it up. And So they already have experience in that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never seen anything in games where they're buying up stuff here and there.
Yeah,
It's like a fever pitch.
Yeah, not a fan of like 3 companies owning everything, but
Yeah,
if it's if it's well intended to like, I mean, obviously businesses want to make money, but if they're like for the creators, if it helps them feel their passion, it could lead to some exciting stuff.
yeah. I'm hoping. Sony's done pretty good by their. I mean, I remember like the guy who did Ratchet and Clank Insomniac. They kind of went independent a little bit, and then they kept doing stuff for Sony. I think Sony owns them again, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it was like, it's like we're going independent, and then they're like, yeah, but we're kind of missing what Sony gives us, so we're going to come back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I already have faith in Bungie's company, just like interacting with people who work there, and they all like love the.
Do you think they would ever make another property or IP for Sony that'll just be for Sony?
They might, but per their agreement, it'd have to be their choice because Sony can't force them to publish something just through them.
It'd be interesting to see them do another single player game.
Yeah,
after so many years.
They've already been working on a couple unnamed games that are going to be. But we know that one of them might be mobile-like. One of them is like a whole new MMO property, and so they might be. One of those might have like some Sony exclusives, but they said that nothing in Destiny will be Sony exclusive. So
yeah, I don't know. Sony's been the one thing Sony has that Microsoft doesn't. Not that it's becoming a video game show or a comic book show, but
it media. I mean,
yeah.
So there's the intersection between comics books readers, heavy metal fans, video game fans, and wrestling fans.
Yeah,
it's a circle.
Yeah. It all kind of goes together.
Yeah.
I Sony has powerhouses when it comes to independent studios that make their own independent games. I mean, that's why I like Sony, because they make a lot of single player games.
Yeah.
Xbox doesn't as much. And I'm one of those people, like old school gamer. Like when I start a game, I want to complete it. And a lot of these games live service, you can't complete the game; you just play it forever.
Yeah.
So different mentality on my part.
And for me, that's kind of like what I like being able to do something that I invest in like once a year so often, and then I can pop on for an hour when I need to. There's something new there for me to do, and then I don't necessarily need to worry about like getting the platinum at the end.
Yeah. So I know I was kind of curious about the Elden Ring. I know they're bringing out the new event Horizon, so I'm gonna have to get into that. Sony, I have to admit, gets more exclusives. Did you ever play the new Halo? I haven't played Infinite yet. Have you played?
I played a lot of Infinite.
Do you like it?
How much? I am at. Hold on one second here. Steam library tab over. Why is it so slow? My computer's like dying. There we go. I'm at 140 hours, if that tells you anything.
So apparently you enjoy Halo. Yeah. Okay, that's a win in Tim's book. Okay, got that noted.
Yes. I am platinum on the multiplayer ranked ladder. I almost diamond, but I'm having some issues with people not knowing how to play CTF, which is annoying because it's been a staple of Halo for 20 years.
Well, it's been a staple of first-person shooters like ever.
Since Unreal Tournament 1.
Yeah.
But I mean, the way it plays in Halo, it admittedly is different from like Call of Duty or whatever. But it's still, you have people not worrying about slaying out in the middle of the map, getting down those respawn timers. Like you just have guys just yeeting themselves at the flag. I'm like, you're just dying because you have no support and there's no map control to actually get angles for you to take.
Oh man, yeah. What was it? Oh, that's funny. Oh yeah, Roland was talking about the Moon Knight show. Yeah. Give it I kind of like his mummy look, but I read a little bit. I just remember Moon Knight came really popular again when Stephen Platt was on it, I remember, and then they kind of went away. The Halo. I was kind of curious to see, because then you like Halo Infinite and stuff. What you thought of the TV show? I don't have Paramount. My friend does, so I'm trying to talk her into it. And then let me watch it at her house.
I have a shrine on top of my
for the Halo
bookshelf in the back there. It's all the Halo Rockstars. I have collected every art style, and it's all my shrine there next to my Saint 14 duck from Destiny 2.
Yeah, my nephew's really into the Halo. He loves it. The funny thing is, I went through back recently, like I think last year, and played all the Halos up to current,
Mhm.
and I like Halo. The one thing that always gets me about the game is it's sometimes a little too random for me. Like I feel like
Mhm.
I'm doing good, and then some rocket will come out of nowhere and blow me up, and I'm like, which I know it's like that's battle, that's real battle, but still, it's just
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah, and that's also another thing where like it all comes down to map control.
yeah,
And like if you're thinking that like, okay, I can push this lane, I see teammates alive over there, and they can like contest those rockets, and then they don't. You're like, guys.
yeah. So, so what do you? You pretty much staple Destiny and Halo and stuff right now, don't you?
Yeah. Like as my streamers can attest, it's definitely Destiny and Halo for like a long time. Recently, a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. um, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't stream much. Do you get a lot of people watching you on your Twitch stream?
I'm not like breaking records or anything, but like most nights I have a lively chat or at least people talking.
Yeah, yeah. So, do you guys get into the virtual reality stuff at all?
No. Eventually, I like to do some VR weirdness. Ideally, it'd be really funny because you can get Skyrim Special Edition. You can obviously have you have VR link up
Yeah.
with that. There's also a plugin where you can have Twitch control what's happening in Skyrim. So your audience can do a poll on like what's your quest going to be, what enemies are going to be there, like what's like,
Oh, that sounds kind of fun.
or if they if you have it set up where like if we get like so many subs in such amount of time and there's chaos mode and they can just drop whatever they want to on your map.
Yeah.
So I was watching a streamer and they were in a basement completing the quest, and then chaos mode happened and chat dropped a mob of 20 horkers, like the big sea lions, in this basement, and they could not get around to finish everything.
That's really good. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
So doing that in
I know
VR, I think
there's-
would be hilarious.
Yeah, VR. I think that would be fun. I know they just announced PlayStation VR 2, so I was kind of curious.
Yeah.
Anybody, I have the old PlayStation VR, and I'm going to do a bunch of VR after I'm done with my comic. So I
Nice.
used to play it, but I quit playing it at night because I'd put it on, and then like 4 hours would vanish.
Oh, yeah.
And if I wanted to do anything else for the night, it was gone.
Yeah, back
So-
in when like PS4 and VR, the free VR PSVR first dropped, the only thing I have ever won, only Super 6 ever won, was the Taco Bell VR. Like if you got like the $5 box and then the code, you had a chance to be. I won the VR headset from Taco Bell. Like,
Really?
what? Yeah, I didn't have a PlayStation at the time, but my roommate did.
So you hooked it up to his?
Yeah, so we got up to his. We did like some party games with that, and then they dropped that like the Mech Arena game on that, which was just golden for us. And then
Yeah.
I eventually sold it to him when I left, but
Yeah, the one we was like a sport mech arena. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
That was super fun. Yeah. So yeah, I haven't. So what you pretty much primarily just still read X-Men comics, right?
I read yes. If there's anything from the big two, I'm primarily read X-Men. I do also read some stuff from DC, not too much. Like I'll drop in on Constantine every now and then. Batman I liked ever since the Tinian run, like where it is now. I liked it. The Batgirls, which is like all the Batgirls have existed now have their own super team, which I'm digging. So you get like Oracle, Cassandra Cain, like all these people together is like one team. I'm enjoying
Cassandra
that
Cain
one.
always thought was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I read a couple of different independents. I talked about this at length like all last year, but one of my favorite ongoing books right now is The Department of Truth.
Yeah.
But I think is also another Tinian. So anything Tinian writes, I usually like. That's going through an Image. A lot of Comixology originals actually are really good right now. Clear is fun. It's kind of like Altered Carbon. It's cyberpunk detective noir. Everyone exists in like an altered state of reality essentially because they all get this implant that allows them to see things the way they want to see it. And you have to buy upgrades to get different packages. And the one guy who's working this murder case is like one of a few people who pays the extra to get the clear package to see reality as it is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So that's cool. The art's great on that. And then Dot Self, which actually friendly acquaintance, friendo-ish, Kara McGee is doing the art on that, and her style is so good.
That's cool.
And that one's also has to do. It's another. It's really interesting that it has to deal with also like Altered Carbon, but only this one is more so the concept of Altered Carbon that there's like a digital backup of your consciousness.
Yeah.
And this woman ends up discovering that there is another her currently existing in the world at this time, and that's not supposed to happen. And so there, that starts unraveling the mystery of what's happening with this identity backup device.
That sounds interesting. Yeah, I like I said, I've been reading Cithra, and there's some independent comics. There was one I think it's called Edge of the Sword or something through Indie Planet. That guy did 5 issues of that. I don't know if it's the full thing. I got the first issue and I really liked that, so I ordered the rest of those.
Yeah.
And but I need to go to the library and check out more comics. That's a lot of times I get comics through there. Been reading Blade of the Immortal. I need to catch up on the next volume of that. I tend to anymore. I think I collect graphic novel series more than independent, like single issues.
Yeah, if I'm buying something physically, I usually get a trade or an omnibus.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Do you read any comics anymore, Quentin, or do you just draw them?
I just draw them. Comics are stupid. No, I'm just kidding. I actually do buy some. I usually read them last. If I see some artwork that's really good, that turns me on to it, I'll get it. I bought some the other day actually from the dollar bin. That's old Malibu. Got some Barbara Kellberg on the cover, and
who are these people you speak
I'm actually, next time we stream, I'll show them.
Perfect.
I'll pull them out.
Who's
I was
Barbara
pretty
Kellberg?
excited about them. I haven't looked through them yet too much, but that's the kind of stuff I usually get. I mean, just stuff that the artwork really, really, comes out at me, or if I know them, that's another.
I need to go to like dollar bins. My stores always have. Well, there's one store that has the back issue, but a lot of comic book stores don't.
Yeah. All right, well, it is 10:11 on this Tuesday after evening, so we're going to have to. Someone say, yes, Chris, we did. Quentin has some samples to share with us next week.
Should be starting Night Rise pretty soon.
I was talking with someone. I subtweeted them in love, because I was talking about the line above our executives, and he's like, "Oh, you guys are kind of like Malibu Part 2." I'm like, "We're not Malibu Part 2. We're like the Big Red of comics.
Yes,
we're classic, but refreshing and way too sugary."
Yes. The one who would always do Eric Larson did a lot of crazy stuff for sound effects, and then of course Will Eisner did a lot of that in the Spirit stuff. When people do sound effects, it gets so I've Aaron ever commissioned you. I don't know, what would I commission Quentin to draw me? I mean, he's already drawn my mom in that first image he showed. I don't know how he's getting pictures of her.
Now which one is she? Is she
the very first
here
one
or here?
Yeah, it's
because man, your mom's hot.
Yeah, I know.
A little scarred up.
She's everywhere. What can I say?
Well, this has been a Silverline Show on Tuesday. We have been your hosts.
If you would like Quentin to draw your mom,
send
him.
We have our Instagram tags there. You can message us and request pictures of Aaron's mother.
Curtis is in the chat.
Yes. He is.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis, for allowing me to be a part of the Shadow Ghost verse.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I think Curtis still has my pinup, which I'm sure he's blown it up and pasted on his wall and looks at it every night at Dorian Lee, which he should.
Absolutely. Oh, follow us on our socials there. We will see you next week at 8 p.m. Pacific time. Feel free to stop by this channel 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday and Sunday for the Wednesday Whammers and the Sunday Club, the Silver Sunday Club.
Which is more of our elderly members.
Yeah, we're. I think we're just known as the Tuesday guys. Just a couple dudes, just a couple dudes doing guy stuff. So we'll be back next week for for a show on Tuesday. Hope to see you then.
Jam.
And until then, remember to
Make mine Silverline. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Alex Saviuk, and I just want to let you know, make mine Silverline.